Welcome to Inside Games Daily, the only gaming news show brave enough to tell you that you really don't care about this video you literally just clicked on.
Yeah, games journalism. It's a pile of contradictions sometimes like that. Let's be honest, if you look around, the last few years have not been kind to traditional gaming outlets, and that's not because everyone loves gaming journalism.
But there's a ray of hope offered by an NFT game developer of all things. Gunzilla Games, co-founded by film director Neil Blomkamp, and currently developing the NFT shooter Off the Grid, which, by the way, isn't that bad, even though it's crypto and NFT. I played it. They have acquired Game Informer and revived it with 100% of its original staff.
Contradictions, you see what I mean? Game Informer's back. Yay! It's from an NFT game. Ah. Despite the cynical nature of the headline of this episode, and even some of the snark you've already heard, we want to make it very clear that this is a good thing, and we are happy for everyone at Game Informer. We're happy for everyone out there that remembers Game Informer fondly. But there's the big one. 15 years of experience in games media between Bruce and I combined is like 30 years now. It leaves us with some conflicted feelings and some worries about the future of this whole scene, which we'll get into.
Yeah, we'll go through the timeline, and then we'll obviously talk about our experience anecdotally, and also there's a little evidence as well. So first, Game Informer announced their return on March 25th with a YouTube video and a post on GameInformer.com, and everybody rejoiced.
Yes, very good stuff, especially since everyone kept their jobs, and that's a miracle. Despite being owned by a game developer, I guess unlike a games retailer in the past, that implies a possible conflict of interest there. Game Informer editor-in-chief Matt Miller promises the Game Informer retains all editorial control.
All of Game Informer's editorial content is 100% selected by our editorial team without any outside influence, including from the new owner.
So new content is already posting on the Game Informer website, with the physical magazine promised to return in the coming months. They're going to sell a magazine, Lawrence.
Yeah, a physical magazine. Those are getting more and more rare as time goes by. So yay, it's there's not really a downside to any of this. The truth is, and Bruce and I have commiserated about this both on and off camera a number of times, games media is just not a good business, when that comes to the cost of production, the money you get back. It is really tough to make a go of it, and it's exceptionally tough to scale a business off of it.
Yeah, there's very little money. The product itself is expensive to make properly, and hilariously, Lawrence and I have scaled back on that, and it still is not the easiest thing to make every day. Our editor, Shuklin, is doing all of the work, and Lawrence is doing a lot of the writing and pre-production, so it's like one of those things where even this tiny little show that we make every day, kind of tough to do properly.
Yeah, tough to break even, tough to turn a profit on, that's for sure. It's, as somebody who's done a lot of that research, a lot of that writing that goes into a properly researched, news breaking piece, let me tell you, it is so much easier to just yell into a webcam about whatever hot button topic of the week is bubbling right now than to actually go out, research a story, talk to multiple people, convert those interviews into a piece that flows normally, and vet all your sources, get it approved by an editor. Like, doing all that responsibly, there's value in it artistically, there's value in it culturally, but the audience doesn't really reward it accordingly with a number of views for how hard it is to do.
Yeah, a lot of that is because of the YouTube algorithm, Twitch algorithm, things like that, in addition to the audience. But, they sort of go hand in hand, and then rage bait becomes the most popular thing. So that means the only way to increase margin is to post more with less time. That's why you see a ton of videos. That's why we went daily. We were hoping it would help. And then weirdly, some of the audience, and maybe, I don't know about the majority, but some of the audience does not discern the difference between an opinion piece, somebody yelling into a webcam, and then also a well-researched written piece that actually has evidence and things like that.
Yeah, and to be clear, because I know it can sound like this, we're not shaming the audience, we're not shaming you. People choose what they want to watch, and there's nothing wrong with that. We're just kind of trying to lay out the business realities of what we see on a daily basis. And to link that back to Game Informer leads to some trepidation about the future, because from an outsider's perspective, we have no visibility on the actual business operations of Game Informer. Nor do I want this to sound like a criticism of how they operate their business. But you keep dropping those pregnant butts. It's unlikely that Game Informer as a business is doing better now than it was when it closed. I mean, I'm sure all the narrative about it coming back will bring up a lot of support, and that's great. And hopefully that they were allowed to operate on that for a while. But what happens if Off the Grid flops? And like, there's a lot of shooters that have flopped. Was it Spectre Divide?
No, Spectre Divide, yeah.
There's a lot of Concord. There's a lot of like service-based shooters that have tried to get off the ground. It's an exceedingly crowded market. So when Game Informer's parent company suddenly loses the desire to operate a business that's not bringing in loads of cash, what happens then?
Yeah, the only thing I can think, having run the business of Funhouse for a while, within another business, by the way, it wasn't necessarily a fully proper business, is that they lower the costs for Game Informers. So they're going to keep everybody hired, but then they're going to be like, okay, figure out how to make more content with the same amount of people. And then that's how you do it. And then we'll see if it hits, right? We'll see if Game Informer can get the views and get the support and the people in. But that's generally what you do, is if you want to keep costs down and then make more content, that will bring up I mean, I don't even know if they're profitable, but it'll bring up the profit margin if there is any.
As somebody who worked in a GameStop and sold a handful of Game Informer subscriptions in my day, they used to have a pretty virtuous cycle there where people would come into the store, you get them a magazine, and the magazine would show up and kind of get them excited to come back into the store. Nowadays, the cycle's a bit different. So I do hope Game Informer can find a good model out there, because a lot of people are trying. And we'd like to say that there is a bright future for Game Informer and maybe more traditional games media reporting. But the last 4 years have shown us that the trend is not going in that direction.
Yeah, lots of larger companies have really lost the patience for it, because if anything, the margin on this is like, 5% or whatever. They're making no money on this, and that's why you are constantly seeing these layoffs.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially, I remember at Machinima explicitly, they wanted to build an IGN competitor so that they could rake in all the sponsorship dollars and throw sponsored parties and stuff. And they lost the patience for it. A lot of people do, because it takes more than a couple years and a lot of just takes a lot of work to get yourself into that field and get any money out of it.
Yeah, we're seeing the business model of games journalism change sort of into the niche audience supports them via Patreon. So for the sake of community service, we've actually compiled just a really short list of what people are doing now. Here are some fellow games media folks that have spun off to do their own thing independently, which is super cool.
Yeah, you've got MinMax, which formed in 2019 after layoffs at Game Informer. You got Aftermath, which launched in 2023 after layoffs at Kotaku. And then a couple of other knuckleheads that have been doing it for a minute. Chris Dring just launched a newsletter called The Game Business that's really focused on the actual business operations of the industry. That's something we dally in here a lot, so I'm a big fan. And then Stephen Totillo has been reporting at The Game File for a while now, and has a handful of pretty big stories that he's broken over there. So definitely recommend checking out all those outlets to find the flavor of games media that you prefer. And yes, Bruce, you're absolutely correct. You have to appeal directly to the audience, find your niche, and hopefully everyone is as blessed as we are here that we can have some supporters that directly fund the show. Yeah,
not to mention, by the way, the people, good friends of ours started doing this a very long time ago, Kind of Funny did this directly, and they were one of the first. Easy Allies, same deal, right? These are people that, in my opinion, were way ahead, and they're still doing it. They are still going to their audience, and their audience supports them directly and things like that. So it seems to work. I just don't know if there's the much larger scale that you would, hope, I guess, with an IGN or something.
Yeah, I guess. But I don't know. I think it's okay that it's not like that. It seems like big scale. If you're going for scale, then you have to kind of slip into the kind of sycophantic popularism of a lot of other games media, where you tell people what they want to hear as loud as you possibly can. So you kind of turn it more into theater. And you can kind of scale off that, but then again, what's the point? If the most successful product is one person, 5 minutes of prep, a bunch of tabs open on the browser, and they just click through them all, read them, and then say that this is all bullshit. That's about as efficient as you can get for a product. So scaling up beyond there is just kind of for love of the game, I guess. Speaking of Kind of Funny, they have a very glitzy studio, but that I think is just for just to make it nice. It doesn't necessarily make the media perform better. I don't know, Bruce and I, we've talked about this a lot, about I'll have desires to punch up production, and Bruce has to constantly be like, that's just for you. Just acknowledge that.
Again, and by the way, Lawrence, just personally, I would love if we could be like, oh, you know what? We spent an extra $2,000 an episode on something. Look at that. The views went up. The money went up. It all went up. Perfect. That's never the case. And it just, anecdotally to you guys, the audience, Lawrence and I talk about this almost monthly. It's very, very sad to think, like, we had to title this video, "Nobody Cares About Games Journalism." And then obviously when you come into the video, we talk about how there are people that do care about it. It's just a smaller audience. But we had to title the video that way to get you in. And that's just us doing a little tweak. It's not even really a clickbait thing. It's just more of like a way to figure out to get people to watch our video. And that we're not the rage bait content that you see surfacing its way to the very top of YouTube, and people screaming about any topic and being angry about literally everything every single day, because it makes them money. And Lawrence and I don't want to turn into that. That's something, by the way, I could do that. I could do that every day. I could come on and yell at you about something, but that's, in my opinion, disingenuous and not necessarily our opinion every single day. So I don't know. It's just something that we talk about a lot, and we don't want to give to you guys, the audience, but I don't even really know if there's a space for it anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's kind of the reason why, it's kind of the reason for our catchphrase, not catchphrase, talking about how brave we are. It's not very brave to talk about video games on the internet, but it is kind of like we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot intentionally by choosing to do it this way, when you can see another business or another style of content that flat out performs better. So yeah, we are kind of brave by walking away from all that success and money. We appreciate you guys watching, because I'm sure, like, if you've noticed, we've gone daily over the course of March, and some of those episodes do really great, and some of those episodes do not do really great. And it's I could give you a very, very quick little peek into the comparison of making videos in February when we only had a few videos. I don't think I haven't even told Lawrence this because I've been keeping track. Yeah, I haven't really looked. In February, we made 6 videos. And then in March, we made 20. What's interesting about this is we made triple the content, a little more than triple, from February to March. But our revenue just about doubled. So very interesting that we had to make triple the content to make double the revenue. But now, if you do any math at all, there is no profit margin there. There is no profit at all. That's negative. It went down. Yeah, that's negative. That's bad. So it's just, but that's the YouTube. That is and that's only counting YouTube. I'm only talking about YouTube there. So that is what happens if we solely focused on YouTube with the content that we make now. And that does not sustain itself for very long. So thankfully, we've got the Patreon. The Patreon is you guys supporting us, and that offsets all this YouTube bullshit that we got to deal with. Yeah, the Patreon, which we're incredibly grateful for, and then any sponsorships we happen to get, which has completely dried up this year. So it's interesting out there. Yeah, yeah. But hey, enough about our woes and concerns. I just thought we would share those in context of Game Informer coming back, because honestly, it's more. I want it to come. My heart is in solidarity right now. I wish the best for anyone that enters this highly competitive field. And I really do hope that everyone can find a niche and find a way to contribute meaningfully to games culture, which we all love so much. Yeah, and by the way, this is not me complaining. It's just more of like the realities of the situation. And it was an interesting experiment because I have never got to see it so fully on display. Like what we did when we went daily, and we may continue to do daily, we may not. It's up to Shooklin. Shooklin is doing, like I said, the lion's share of the work. So it's something we love to do, and we would love to continue to do. But who knows, really? I never know. It seems like it changes month to month, and that's super scary. Yeah, from a business perspective, yeah. But hey, enough of us pinching pennies here. We know times are tough for you. And that's why Inside Games is on your side. We're out there pounding the pavement, clicking through the subreddits, and finding the free games that you can save a couple of bucks. We got some free Epic games this week, as we do every week. This week it's Cat Quest and Neko Ghost Jump. Okay. There's also the free Amazon Prime games, Session, the skate sim, The Forgotten City, Let's Build a Zoo, Deus Ex Invisible War, and Game Deck.
Definitive Edition. What the hell is Game Deck, Lawrence? I don't even know.
It's a cyberpunk turn-based strategy game. So kind of like Shadowrun, if you played those.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, cool stuff. Cool stuff. Definitely my kind of game. And this is a shout out for tomorrow. The April slate of PlayStation Plus games will be available then. But that's notable because RoboCop Rogue City is the lead game, and that one's phenomenal. Check it out if you haven't played it yet. You can also get the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth Hacker's Memory. Star-studded. Save yourself some money. Play some free games.
Every time we report on the state of games media, we gain a renewed appreciation for the support we receive from you all through the Patreon, the Inside Games Patreon. So thank you again. Just watching is awesome, like you've done here if you're on YouTube. But there are a few folks that support us directly every single month. We are impossibly grateful to them because we wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, or it would be very, very different without their support. So
yeah,
because of that, we'd like to shout out some patrons here: Casey Towski and J Embers 87. Thank you for taking internet bravery to new heights and supporting the show directly. Really appreciate it.